Hello, and welcome back to our series of poetry lectures for class. Today, we're going to be talking about two different ideas that are very important to understanding poetry: imagery and figurative language. There are a lot of vocab terms to learn here today, so make sure that you write them down and don't forget any. The first thing we're going to talk about is imagery. Many thoughts from words in our brain come to us in pictures. When I say something like tree, in your brain you are picturing a tree. You're not actually picturing the word T-R-E-E. Now, in our brain we are forming these pictures, and these imagined pictures or sensations are called images. So an image is in our mind. Now, poets, when they write, attempt to share their experiences with us by appealing to our imaginations. This use of words to create a real, vivid, fresh picture is called imagery. Whenever a poet uses very descriptive adjectives or five senses or anything like that that helps put a picture in our head, that's called imagery. The next thing we're going to learn about is figurative language. Figurative language is language that represents one thing in terms of another. I felt like a worm. We ate like kings. That test was murder. None of these things actually are the other things. They're just being compared or represented in a different way. I am being represented like a worm. We are being represented like kings. The test is being represented like murder. That's figurative language. We use figurative language because it helps it make the language richer in meaning and way more imaginative. If we only used facts and figures, it would get kind of boring. Figurative language offers new insights to what we see and feel, and sometimes it can be a little more descriptive than giving just the actual facts. These are some terms that you'll want to know. The first one is simile. A simile is a figure of speech that compares two unlike things using a word such as like, as, or than to suggest a similarity. Here, the similarity is suggested, and that's going to be a big thing. Another important point is to always look for the words like, as, or than. You cannot have a simile without them. Another important term is metaphor. Metaphors point out a resemblance between two unlike things. The difference here is that it identifies the two things as one. One thing is not like the other, it is the other. At the bottom of this slide, we have Look, Label, Explain chart. We call it a Look, Label, Explain chart because that's exactly what the three columns represent. The first column is the look column. It's the quote directly taken from a poem. The second column is the label. What would we label this if we had to using the terms that we've learned so far? The explain column in the third column is what is it doing? How is it working? First, we have he runs like the wind. That's going to be a simile because it's comparing his running to the wind using the word like. Our explanation here is he is running very fast. The second example, Jim is a beast. Here, Jim is being represented as a beast. But it's not like a beast, he is a beast. So that's going to be a metaphor. And the explanation here is that Jim is very big and strong. Here are some pictures that you can try to connect to make similes or metaphors. For example, if we look in the lower left-hand corner, I've got a picture of a person sleeping, and I have a picture of a log. I could say that he is sleeping like a log. That is a simile. What other similes or metaphors can you create by connecting pictures here on the slide? Some more terms are personification and symbols. Personification is a figure of speech that gives human qualities to something non-human. For example, a human can scratch something, but when I say that the tree's branches scratched at the window, that's personification because I'm using the human aspect of scratching something and giving it to an inhuman object like a tree. I could also say that the floorboards moaned when I walked on it. But moaning is a sound that a human makes when they are in distress or pain. Therefore, I am giving it to an inhuman object, making it an example of personification. Symbols are very important in literature. Symbols allow a writer to compress a very complex idea or set of ideas into one image or even one word. Some symbols are often used in literature, such as winter being like death, spring being like life. But writers can also create their own as well. If they want to make an umbrella a symbol of protection, they can. It's totally up to them and how they use their writing. Let's take a look at this Look Label Explain chart for these examples of personification. The sun climbed the sky. Well, this is personification because the sun physically can't climb like a human can. The explanation here is the sun is just getting higher in the sky. Now, sometimes personification isn't going to be an action, but an actual human, like the Grim Reaper. This is personification because death is walking around and taking souls from people's bodies. Death is given the form of a human, and it's doing things like walking around. Today, we learned about some very important vocab terms: imagery, figurative language, simile, metaphor, personification, and symbol. These are terms that you're going to need to know if there are any quizzes or essays coming up on poetry. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.